Welcome back to the deep dive. And for this specific deep dive, I want to say welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast.
Thank you.
We are wading into waters today that I think everyone knows exist, but, almost nobody wants to swim in until they're absolutely forced to.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those topics that it sits in the shadows, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
We're talking about a very specific, very heavy, and yet incredibly common human experience.
It is. We talk a lot about grief in our culture, but usually we were talking about the aftermath. We talk about the funeral, the year after, the empty chair at the table. We have scripts for that.
Right, the after.
Yeah.
Casserole brigade comes to the door.
Yeah.
The sympathy cards arrive.
Exactly. But today we are looking at the before. We're looking at the grief that walks through the door long before the loss actually happens.
The grief that sits down at the breakfast table with you while everyone is still alive.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah. I was reading through the source material for this, specifically Loving and Losing.
Yeah.
The reality of anticipatory grief, alongside some really insightful notes from memorial educators, including the funeral program site. And I was struck by this central paradox.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hook of the whole discussion for me. How is it even possible to mourn someone who is sitting right in front of you?
That is the question, isn't it? That's the one that keeps people up at night.
It's just baffling. You're looking at them, they might be drinking coffee, they might be watching TV, breathing, talking.
Being them.
Being them.
Yeah.
And yet your heart is breaking as if they are already gone. And the sources bring up these questions that people ask themselves in the dark, usually at 3 a.m.
Oh, yes. The 3 a.m. question.
Questions like, why do I feel like I'm already grieving?
Yeah.
Or the really hard one, am I betraying them by imagining a world without them?
That sense of betrayal is huge. It feels like a violation of the relationship. It feels so disloyal.
It does. And then there's the big one. Why is this so exhausting? So that is what we are unpacking today, the invisible grief.
Invisible is the right word.
Yeah, this isn't about the sudden shock of a car accident or, a heart attack. This is about the long goodbye.
And it is a long goodbye. We should probably start by defining our terms here because words really matter with this. We are talking about anticipatory grief.
Agreed.
But I want to be clear. This isn't just worrying.
Right, let's distinguish that. Because I worry about my parents getting older, is that anticipatory grief?
That's a great question. Not necessarily. Worry is often hypothetical. What if mom gets sick? Anticipatory grief is when the threat is real, present, and basically inevitable.
Okay.
It's the emotional response that occurs when a loss is expected but has not happened yet. It's the mind and body's reaction to a confirmed threat to attachment.
So a confirmed threat.
Yes. We see this most commonly in terminal illness, progressive neurological diseases like ALS or MS, advanced dementia, which is a huge one.
Huge.
Long-term hospice care or, end-stage organ failure.
So it's basically anywhere where you can see the finish line, even if it's
blurry. Precisely. And our mission for this deep dive is really specific. It's to validate this.
Yes.
Because so often this form of grief is invisible. It's misunderstood. People feel like they're going crazy because they're grieving the living. We want to move from that confusion to a place of compassion.
I love that framing. Moving from confusion to compassion. And we should mention, as you said, we are drawing heavily from Loving and Losing, and also the expertise provided by the funeral program site, who deal with families in this exact transition period every single day.
They do, and their insights are just crucial here because they see the practical side of this emotional storm.
The practical side.
They see the families who are trying to, pick out a program design while their loved one is in the next room asking for a glass of water.
That image. Wow, that hits hard. That juxtaposition is...
Yeah, it's everything.
So let's jump into the deep end then. Section 1, the paradox of presence and absence.
This is the core of the torture, if I can use that word. And I think it's the right word.
You can. Because reading about this, it sounds like torture. It's this emotional duality. You are loving and losing simultaneously.
At the exact same time.
But I want to circle back to that term you used in the pre-show notes, cognitive dissonance. Because I think we throw that around a lot in pop psychology, but in this context, it feels visceral. It's not just, I have two conflicting thoughts. It's like a biological glitch.
Oh, absolutely. It's a glitch in the brain's prediction error system. So your brain's primary job, its most basic function, is to predict the immediate future to keep you safe.
Okay.
Usually the data is consistent, mom is here, mom is alive, but in anticipatory grief, the data is corrupted. You see her breathing, That's data point A.
Right, tangible evidence.
But you know her diagnosis and you know she's leaving. That's data point B. They can't coexist.
So your brain is essentially throwing a constant error code, like a 404 error for reality.
Exactly. It's the spinning wheel of death on your computer just running in the background of your mind 24/7.
That's why it's physically exhausting.
That's it. You aren't just sad. You are metabolically drained because your brain is burning calories trying to reconcile two impossible realities.
Wow. Pauline Boss, the researcher in this field, she coined a term for this family of feelings.
Ah.
Ambiguous loss.
Yes, ambiguous loss. And that's a perfect term for it.
Break that down for us, because ambiguous sounds vague, but this feeling, it sounds very, very specific.
It does. It refers to loss without closure. It's when a person is physically present but psychologically absent, like with dementia, or psychologically present but physically dying. It's the lack of clarity that freezes the grieving process. You can't grieve fully because they are here, but you can't celebrate fully because they are dying.
You're stuck.
You are stuck in the threshold. You can't go forward. You can't go back. You're just in the doorway.
It's like your brain is splitting in half.
It is. And the source material uses this beautiful but heartbreaking phrase to reframe it. It calls this state love in motion.
Love in motion. I circled that 3 times in my notes. That really landed with me.
It's powerful, isn't it? Because when we feel this anticipatory grief, we often judge ourselves. We think, oh, I'm being a pessimist or I'm giving up on them.
Right, I should be more positive.
Exactly. But the source argues that this isn't pessimism. It is simply attachment meeting reality. You are grieving because you love them so much and you know that the attachment is being threatened. The grief is proportional to the love.
That makes me feel so much better just reading it. It's not a failure of character. It's a function of love.
It's proof of love.
Yeah. But let's talk about what that actually feels like day to day. Because I think when we hear the word grief, we just think sadness. We think crying in a dark room.
Yeah.
But the spectrum of emotions here it's wide.
It's a cocktail. A very volatile cocktail. Yes, of course there is sadness, a profound sadness.
Right.
But anticipatory grief is also anxiety, huge amounts of anxiety. It's anger. Anger at what? At the disease. At God.
At everything. At the disease, at the doctors for not having a cure, at friends who don't get it even. And this is the hard part. Even at the person who's sick for leaving you.
Oof, that's a tough one to admit.
It is. And then there's fear, longing, and just this profound, bone-deep emotional exhaustion.
And it's not linear, right? It's not like you feel angry on Monday, sad on Tuesday, and, accepting on Wednesday.
No, it's chaotic. It's rapid cycling. You can feel a moment of profound peace and connection. Maybe you're just holding hands or watching a movie together, a moment of normalcy.
And it feels so good.
It feels like everything is okay. And then 5 minutes later, you are hit with a wave of sheer panic or absolute despair because you realize this might be the last time you watch a movie together.
Yeah.
It is destabilizing. You don't have solid ground to stand on.
That instability seems to be a key differentiator between this and the grief that comes after death.
That's a great point to pivot to. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the architecture of this exhaustion. Why is anticipatory grief so uniquely draining? Yeah, the source material made a distinction here that really clicked for me. It compared it to post-death grief.
Yeah.
Post-death grief, as awful and gut-wrenching as it is, eventually settles into a new reality.
Right. The worst has happened.
The blow has landed. You're now dealing with the after.
Exactly. There is a permanence to post-death grief. The narrative has changed. The book has closed. But anticipatory grief has no clear endpoint. You are living in a state of high alert. It's a prolonged state of emotional tension.
The source used the analogy of holding your breath.
It's a perfect analogy. Imagine holding your breath. You can do it for 30 seconds, maybe a minute if you're a swimmer. But imagine holding your breath for 6 months or 2 years or 5 years.
You can't. You physically can't survive that.
You can't. But emotionally, that is exactly what you are doing. You are waiting for the other shoe to drop. You are waiting for the end.
You mentioned holding your breath, which is a great metaphor, but let's look at the biology of that.
Yeah.
Because the source material mentioned that caregivers in this state often have cortisol levels similar to soldiers in active combat zones.
Yes. That's not an exaggeration.
Wait, really? Like active combat?
Yes. That's the hypervigilance trap. When you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, maybe a fall, a seizure, or that middle-of-the-night phone call, your amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, stays stuck in the on position.
It never powers down.
Never. You are scanning for sweats constantly. Every cough, every stumble, every moment of silence is a potential catastrophe.
So you never actually rest, even when you're sleeping.
You aren't really sleeping. You're scanning.
Yeah.
You're engaging in what researchers call sentinel sleep. It's a very light, fragmented sleep where your brain is actively listening for breathing changes in the next room.
Oh my God.
You wake up if the oxygen machine beeps, or if the floorboards creak, or if it's just too quiet.
And over 6 months or 2 years, I mean, that destroys you.
It wrecks your immune system, your cognitive function, your patience. It's why so many caregivers get seriously ill after the loved one passes away.
Right, the adrenaline finally wears off and the body just, it crashes.
It completely crashes. There's nothing left in the tank.
And this all leads to that concept of living in 2 timelines. I found this fascinating and just terrifying.
Let's unpack that because it's the central experience.
Yeah.
Timeline A is the present.
Right. Timeline A, mom is here. She needs her medication. She wants to watch her favorite show. She needs a blanket. I am here, holding her hand.
Yeah.
It's the tangible, physical now.
Correct. That is the timeline of presence, of care. But then there's timeline B, always running in the background.
Timeline B is the mental preparation. It's the timeline where I'm imagining the funeral. I'm imagining cleaning out her house. I'm wondering what Christmas is going to look like next year without her.
And you are jumping between these 2 timelines constantly, often in the same minute.
So you could be feeding her soup in timeline A.
While in the back of your mind, in timeline B, you are wondering if this is the last time she'll ever eat soup, or you're mentally rehearsing the eulogy.
God, that is exhausting just to describe.
It is. It consumes a massive amount of cognitive energy. You are never fully present and you're never fully resting because you are constantly bridging the gap between what is and what will be.
It reminds me of, have you ever had a computer with too many tabs open and the fan starts whirring really loud and everything just slows down to a crawl?
That is the perfect metaphor for the caregiver's brain in anticipatory grief. You are running high-performance software on a battery that is always at 5%.
So, okay, we're holding our breath. We're living in 2 timelines. We're essentially soldiers in a combat zone. But there's another layer to this, isn't there? It's not just waiting for the end. It's that the loss is happening now.
Yes. It's happening in pieces.
In real time.
Yes. This is section 3, grieving in fragments. We often think of death as the event, the moment the heart stops. But in the context of terminal illness or dementia, the loss is not a single event. It is a slow fade.
The slow fade. That sounds like a horror movie title, but it's reality for so many people.
It is. You are grieving incrementally. You aren't just losing the person at the end. You are losing parts of them bit by bit, day by day.
The source listed some of these micro losses, and they hit hard. It's not just losing their physical presence eventually, it's losing shared plans.
The future you thought you had, the retirement trip you were going to take to Italy, the grandchild's graduation you were going to attend together.
The anniversary you're going to celebrate.
All of that. Those are gone before the person is gone. You grieve the future before you grieve the present.
And then there's independence and roles. That's a big one. Watching someone who used to be the strong one, the protector, the one you went to for advice, suddenly become dependent.
That role reversal is a form of grief in itself. It's deeply unsettling. You are grieving the father who could fix anything, while you are now the one fixing his pillows or managing his finances.
And you have to step up, which means acknowledging that they are stepping down.
And that's a loss. It's a loss of the dynamic that defined your relationship for decades.
And personality traits.
Yeah.
Especially, you mentioned, with dementia.
Oh, dementia is a unique beast in this regard. With dementia, you can lose the person's essence years, sometimes a decade, before you lose their body.
So what's loss?
You lose their humor. You lose their recognition of you, which is devastating. You lose their specific quirks, the way they used to tell a story. It's often described as the long goodbye or living with a ghost. You're caring for a stranger in your loved one's body.
That's the witnessing part. The source talks about the pain of witnessing. It's not passive. You are forcing yourself to watch strength fade and memory diminish.
And that leads to what experts call chronic sorrow. It's not a sharp, acute spike of grief. It's a dull, constant ache that's just there all the time.
The background noise of your life.
Exactly. You are grieving the person while they are still the person. You are missing them while you're sitting right next to them.
I think that's where so much of the confusion comes from for a lot of people. They feel this sorrow and they think, I shouldn't feel this bad yet. They're still here. Which brings us squarely to the guilt trap.
Guilt. the constant companion of the grieving. It's the shadow that follows you everywhere.
It's everywhere in the source material. This internal narrative of, am I giving up?
It's a very common defense mechanism, really. We tell ourselves, if I start grieving, it means I've stopped fighting. It means I've accepted defeat.
It means I've signed their death warrant in my heart.
Right, I'm burying them before they're dead. That's the phrase that kept popping up over and over.
It's so visceral.
It is, but we have to reality check that. Grief doesn't care about your logic or your timeline. Grief begins when attachment is threatened, not just when it is severed.
Can you say more about that?
Sure, if you were dangling off a cliff, holding on by your fingertips, you wouldn't wait until you fell to the ground to feel fear.
No, you'd feel it instantly.
You'd feel terror the moment your grip slipped. Anticipatory grief is the emotional response to the grip slipping. It's not giving up. It's acknowledging gravity.
Gad, it's a fantastic analogy. The grip is slipping. Okay, I hear you. Grief is love. Intellectually, that makes sense, but emotionally, it feels like betrayal.
It really does.
The sources highlight this specific thought. I am planning their funeral while they're in the living room eating breakfast. I don't care how much psychology you throw at me, that makes me feel like a vulture.
It feels predatory. I get that. It feels ghoulish.
It does. It feels like I'm rushing them out the door, like I'm clearing this space before they've even left it.
But flip the script for a second. If you didn't plan, if you ignored the reality until the moment they died, what happens then?
Chaos. Absolute chaos.
Chaos. You're left making impossible decisions, cremation or burial, what kind of service, while you are in a state of profound shock and grief. The source argues that the planning isn't a wish for their death, it's a security deposit on your future sanity.
So that's a protection mechanism for your future self.
It's the ultimate act of adulting. It's an act of love, actually. You are absorbing the pain of logistics now so you can be fully present with your grief then. But let's be real, society doesn't help.
No.
What happens when you tell a friend you're looking at caskets for your mom who is still alive?
Well, they look at you like you're the Grim Reaper. Don't give up hope. She looks so good today. You have to stay positive for her.
Exactly. That's toxic positivity, and it's the enemy of anticipatory grief. At least they're still here. That's the one that stings the most.
Oh, I hate it, at least. It's the most invalidating phrase in the English language.
Me too. Because it invalidates the pain you're in right now. It implies that as long as there is a heartbeat, you aren't allowed to suffer. But the reality is, witnessing suffering is suffering. And pretending everything is fine, it just creates an even bigger distance between you and the person who is dying because they know it's not fine.
And then there's the betrayal myth. This idea that if I think about my life after they are gone, if I wonder, will I sell the house? Or what will I do with my weekends now that I'm not caregiving, that I am being disloyal?
It feels like betrayal. It feels cold and calculating. But the source argues, and I completely agree, that this is the mind's necessary attempt to prepare for the unimaginable.
It's a rehearsal.
It is. Your brain is trying to build a lifeboat because it sees the ship sinking. That's not betrayal, that's survival. It's trying to imagine a future so that you know you can survive it.
It's survival. I like that. We need to cut ourselves some slack. Our brains are just trying to protect us.
Exactly. We're not monsters, we're just human.
Now, speaking of survival, we have to talk about the people on the absolute front lines of this. The caregivers.
The invisible patients.
The invisible patients. Section 5. The caregiver's burden. This is where the notes from the funeral program site really shine a light on something so important. They noted that caregivers often overlook their own grief because their role is framed as practical rather than emotional.
That is such a critical insight. When you are a caregiver, you have a job description. Manage meds, drive to appointments, cook meals, change sheets, manage symptoms.
You're a project manager for a project you never wanted and didn't apply for.
Correct. And because you are so focused on the doing, on the tasks, you dissociate from the feeling. You think, I don't have time to cry, I have to get this prescription filled. You compartmentalize to survive.
And the cost of that is astronomical.
It's everything. Emotional labor, physical exhaustion, constant vigilance. But there's also the identity crisis that sneaks up on you.
Who am I becoming without this role?
Exactly. If you spend 2, 3, 5 years caring for a dying parent, being a caregiver becomes your primary identity. It eclipses everything else.
It does.
You stop being a friend, a spouse, an employee in the same way. You are just the caregiver. And deeper down in those quiet moments, you start to panic. Who will I be when I'm not needed anymore?
That's a terrifying question because it implies that the end of their suffering is the beginning of your emptiness.
It is, and that's why caregivers so often push their own grief aside. They don't give themselves what the source calls permission to crumble.
Permission to crumble, I like that.
They feel they have to be the rock for everyone, for the dying person, for other family members, but rocks crack under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, they do.
And often, caregivers end up completely isolated because they don't want to burden others, or they feel like no one else understands the specific hell they are living in.
It's lonely. It's incredibly lonely. You can be in a room full of people at a party and feel like you're on a different planet because you're the only one tracking the patient's breathing pattern from across the room.
And the funeral program site emphasizes that this isolation is dangerous. Caregivers need to know that their grief is valid even if the person is still alive. You are losing your life as you knew it too. That deserves to be mourned.
So how do we navigate this? It seems impossible. We're stuck in this paradox. We're exhausted. We're guilty. We're losing our identity. Is there a way to balance this? Section 6 asks, can hope and grief coexist?
The short answer is yes, it has to. The long answer is we have to redefine hope.
Right, because usually hope means, I hope the doctor calls and says it was all a big mistake.
Exactly. That's binary hope. Cure or tragedy. It's all or nothing. But in anticipatory grief, hope has to become more fluid. It's not binary anymore.
So what does it look like? What does this new hope look like?
It's reframing. You stop hoping for a cure if a cure isn't realistically on the table, and you start hoping for other things, smaller, more immediate things.
Like,
You hope for comfort. You hope for good pain management. You hope for a really good afternoon where the sun is shining and they aren't nauseous and you can sit on the porch together. You hope for meaningful moments. You hope for peace.
I love that catchphrase from the host notes. Hope doesn't cancel grief, and grief doesn't erase love.
It's a dialectic. Both things are true at the same time. You can hope they have a peaceful night's sleep and simultaneously grieve the fact that they are dying.
You can laugh at a joke they made.
And cry in the bathroom 10 minutes later. Both are real. Both are valid. They don't cancel each other out.
But practically, that tension is so hard to manage. The struggle between doing and being.
This is the practical tension that wears people down. The doing is the logistics, the end-of-life wishes, the will, the funeral planning, which, by the way, is something the funeral program site suggests tackling early, not to be morbid, but to clear the decks.
Right, get the paperwork out of the way so you can focus on the person, not the process.
Exactly. But then there's the being, the just sitting there, the holding hands, the listening to music, the being present.
And we feel guilty if we aren't doing. We feel like we're being lazy or unproductive.
We do. We live in a productivity-obsessed culture, but the expat advice here is so liberating. There is no perfect balance.
Say that again for the people in the back. That's so important.
There is no perfect balance. Some days are going to be all about logistics. You're going to be on the phone with insurance companies and hospice coordinators all day. That's okay. That is an act of love.
That's caregiving.
It is. Other days, you might ignore the laundry and the phone calls and just sit and watch old movies with them. That is also a valid act of love. You don't have to get an A+ in caregiving every single day.
That is so important to hear. You don't have to get an A+ in dying or in grieving.
No, you just have to show up as you are.
So let's talk about showing up in a meaningful way. Section 7, rituals and meaning making. This felt like the most actionable part of the sources for me. We often think of rituals, funerals, memorials, obituaries as things that happen after.
Yes, post-death activities. But the sources, particularly the insights from memorial educators, argue that we should bring those rituals forward. Don't wait.
Doing something with the grief. This brings us to the action phase. We've talked a lot about the feelings, but what do we actually do with this time?
Right.
The notes from the funeral program site were really illuminating here because they shift the focus from funeral planning to legacy building.
That's a beautiful distinction. They distinguish between the logistics of death, the forms, the wills, the practical stuff, and the work of dying.
The work of dying.
Yes. The work is about capturing the essence. Grief is energy. If you just let it sit, it becomes toxic, it rots. You have to move it. You have to channel it into something.
So what does that look like before death? One idea that really popped out was the tangible legacy. It's not just recording a video. It's things like getting a fingerprint impression for a piece of jewelry, or writing letters for future milestones they'll miss.
And doing it with the person if they are able. The funeral program site suggests this incredible exercise called the life review. You sit down, maybe over coffee or just by the bedside, and you don't ask about their medical stats. You ask, what was the house you grew up in like?
Who was your first heartbreak?
What is the one recipe you want me to keep making for the family?
I love the idea of doing it together. But what if they have dementia? What if they can't answer those questions?
That's where you become the archivist.
Yeah.
You curate their legacy for them. You curate the environment. You play the music from their teenage years, which, by the way, activates a different part of the brain than recent memory, and you can get incredible responses.
Wow.
You build the memory book not with them but for them, and you describe the photos to them. Look, Dad, this is you in the Navy. Mom, this was your wedding day.
It gives you a job, doesn't it? It takes you out of helpless observer mode and puts you into active legacy keeper mode.
Precisely. Agency is the antidote to despair. It gives you something to do.
Voicemails are so easy now. Everyone has a smartphone. Just hit record.
Exactly. Ask them the questions now. What was your favorite song? What was your first date like? What are you most proud of? These seem small, but later, hearing their voice tell that story, they become absolute treasures.
The source also mentioned celebrating milestones early.
Yes, this is a big one. If you know they might not make it to Christmas, have Christmas in October. Who cares? Get a tree, play the music, exchange gifts.
Make the rules up as you go.
Make the rules up. If they might miss a wedding, have a small, intimate ceremony in the hospital room or the living room. These acts are defiance against the loss. They are claiming joy while you still can.
And the funeral program site emphasizes that this isn't just nice to have. This is essential. Meaningful remembrance can begin now and actually supports emotional healing later.
It creates a soft landing for the grief that follows. When you engage in these legacy projects, you are building a bridge to the future where they are gone. You are creating the things that will comfort you later with them.
So it deepens the connection rather than severing it.
Exactly. It's an act of connection, not resignation. It turns the grief into tangible love. It gives the grief a job to do.
Okay, now we have to go to the darkest, quietest corner of the room.
Yeah.
Section 8, the end and the aftermath. There is a feeling that comes up for many, many people when death finally happens or right before it that is so taboo people barely whisper it to their therapists.
Relief.
Relief.
It is the great unspoken secret of anticipatory grief. When the person finally dies or when they slip into that final coma, the caregiver often feels a massive crashing wave of relief.
And then almost instantly,
A massive wave of shame follows it.
I'm glad they're dead. I'm glad it's over. And then, I am a monster. What kind of person thinks that?
We have to validate this right now for anyone listening who has felt this. You are not a monster.
Tell us why. Because it feels monstrous.
You are relieved that the suffering is ending. That's the key. You are relieved that the person you love is no longer in pain, no longer struggling for breath. You are relieved that the 247 high alert vigilance, that holding your breath we talked about, is finally over.
It's a physiological relief as much as an emotional one.
It is. It's your nervous system finally being allowed to stand down after being in combat mode for months or years. It is a sign of compassion, not a lack of love. You love them enough to want their pain to stop, even if the cost of that is your own profound loneliness.
That is a beautiful way to put it. It reframes the whole feeling.
It's selfless, actually, but it feels deeply selfish in the moment.
So the big question that everyone in this situation wonders about, does going through all this, the anticipatory grief, the long goodbye, the two timelines, does it make the end easier? Does it, inoculate you against the post-death grief?
That is the hope, right? I've been grieving for 2 years. Surely I'm done now.
I've prepaid the bill. I'm
Yep.
all paid up on my grief.
Unfortunately, grief doesn't work like a bank account. You can't prepay it. The verdict from all the sources is pretty clear. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
It doesn't replace post-death grief. It transforms into it. It changes its shape.
So what happens? What do those post-death reactions look like?
Well, the reaction is unpredictable. For some people, because they have been in that soldier mode for so long, they experience a total emotional collapse. The war is over, and suddenly the armor falls off, and they just crumble.
The adrenaline crash we talked about.
Huge. For others, they feel numb. They have felt so much for so long that they are just empty. They might not cry at the funeral because they cried all their tears in the shower 6 months ago.
And then everyone judges them for being cold or not caring.
Exactly. And for some, they experience delayed grief. They handle the business, the estate, the funeral. They're efficient. And then 6 months later, they drop a coffee mug and fall apart on the kitchen floor.
So the takeaway is, there is no predictable outcome. Don't expect one, and don't judge your own reaction.
Correct. Anticipatory grief changes the texture of the grief that follows, but it doesn't remove the weight of it. It's just a different kind of heavy.
Wow. That brings us to the end of our deep dive. And what a journey this has been. I feel like I need to take a deep breath myself.
It's heavy stuff. It's really heavy, but it's real life for millions of people.
It is, and it's so necessary to talk about. So let's recap the key takeaways for the listener who is maybe driving to the hospital right now or sitting in their car crying before going back into the house.
First and foremost, anticipatory grief is complex, it is exhausting, and it is valid. You are not crazy, you are not bad, you are grieving. What you are feeling is normal.
Second, you're allowed to grieve early. It is timely, not premature.
Yes. Your feelings are matching the reality of the threat. They are appropriate.
And third, support is essential. It's not optional.
Do not do this alone. Therapy, hospice support groups, resources like the funeral program site for practical guidance, these are not luxuries. They are life rafts. You cannot swim this ocean by yourself.
And a final call to action for our listener. If you are in this situation, protect your energy.
Ruthlessly. You have to. You do not owe optimism to anyone. If your Aunt Karen wants to know why you aren't hoping for a miracle, you do not owe her an explanation.
You can just say thank you for your concern and walk away.
Yes. Limit who you confide in to the people who can actually hold space for your pain without trying to fix it or cheer you up.
You don't have the emotional budget for other people's discomfort.
No. You need every single ounce of energy for yourself and for your loved one.
I want to leave us with a thought that really stuck with me from the source material. It reframes this whole grueling experience.
Oh, okay.
We often think of grief as the price we pay for love after it's gone. That's the standard definition we all learn.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps anticipatory grief teaches us something even more profound. Maybe grief is simply love refusing to look away, even when the ending is in sight.
Refusing to look away. Wow.
Even when it hurts.
Yeah.
Even when it's scary. You stay, you witness, you love anyway.
And that, at the end of the day, is the ultimate act of love.
Thanks for listening to the Deep Dive in the Funeral Channel Network podcast. We'll see you next time.
Take care of yourselves.